Yo, what's going on today, guys? I'm back here for another video. This time I'm going to be showcasing the top 10 decks in the game. As of now, the mini set is going to be coming out next Thursday or Friday, depending on what time zone you do live in, because it does drop at night for PST. So yeah, I'm going to go over the current top 10 decks in the game, not in any order, but I will mention the ones that I think are like the strongest and like the weakest out of the top 10. Yeah, so this is currently like the best deck in the game is what everyone is considering. I do think it is strong. But I could also see it being the second best deck in the game, just because you do have to rely on the luck factor, which is like the main pain point of the deck. Yeah, but it is very simple. It's two Exeggutor EXs and a Celebi. You know, it is basically an Exeggutor EX Turbo deck that has Celebi as a little side piece. And some builds do play two Rocky Helmets and one Cape, so you can change that. But for the most part, like I feel like this is like a very standard version with the two Sabrinas, one Cyrus, the potions, Pokeballs, etc., and obviously the air because we are a grass type. So yeah, currently like I feel like this is the most played deck right now, just because it is super strong into the Darkrai decks. So I feel like because of that, it probably does make it the best deck in the game. Although it does have a really bad matchup into the fire decks, being Infernape and Charizard. Next up, we have the Darkrai and Magnezone deck. Some people play two Druddigons, some people play two Kangaskhan, some people play one of each. And some people do change around the support cards a little bit. Some people have two Cyruses, some people have a Cyrus and a Sabrina, some people play Cyrus and a Giovanni. So remember, stuff like this can always change. And then obviously we have the one giant keep down here, which some people do play a Rocky Helmet instead. So there is definitely some customizations you can do for the support card lineup. But for the most part, people do play a very standard build with the Magnezones, Darkrai's, like I said, either the 1/1 or the 2 of either Druddigon or Kangaskhan. And then usually, you know, 2 leaves. And then the stuff like Cyrus, Dawn, Giovanni, and the Giant Cape is up for the bait. And basically you can change it to whatever, you know, like cards you prefer, your playstyle. So yeah, I think this is either the best or second best deck in the game alongside Celebi. And I guess for people who don't know how this deck works, basically Druddigon is in the active spot. But if you play Kangaskhan, obviously you could put in energy on Kangaskhan, and Kangaskhan can do some flips. But basically, you know, Magneton sets up itself with the energy. Darkrai eventually just chips you down. And usually they have like a Druddigon or Kangaskhan in the active spot faint. And then Magnezone comes in. Magnezone usually knocks something out. At least like one. Usually knocks out one thing, gets something else weak. Possibly can get 2 KOs depending on what deck it is playing against. And then Darkrai is there for the finish. Next up, we have Charizard, which got a huge buff from Pokemon Communication being a card, basically letting you find the evolution pieces faster because of the giant cape, and basically just because of the new cards that came out. Charizard is the only card that can still one-shot everything in the game besides a Magnezone, but Magnezone is not meta. And yeah, so basically Charizard one-shots everything, is doing the same thing it's been doing. It doesn't care about what's in the active spot, what's in the back. It's gonna get those KOs. So the pain points of this deck is obviously Moltres can screw you over with the coin flips, and it is a stage 2 deck. Even with Pokemon Communication, you have those games where you get super unlucky, but for the most part this is a pretty good build. This build actually won like a 1500 plus tournament, which I just grabbed off Limitless. I know some people do play 2 Dawn, some people don't opt for the Sabrina, but you know, the Sabrina can be really nice in case you're playing one of those Darkrai decks that don't have an EX. You could like knock something out. And then they put like the Magnezone in, for example, and then the Magnezone is not going to be able to knock out the Charizard if it's at full HP. Then you would like Sabrina the Darkrai in, for example. So very similar to the Darkrai deck, the support cards are up for debate. Like you could like play whatever you want, you know, you customize it. But for the standard, you basically want 2 Pokemon Communications always. And I know some builds run the Shaman, but I know a lot of builds don't run the Shaman for the healing, because Pokemon Communication basically allows you to find your evolutions faster because you won't have like one less brick in the deck. Next up, we have Gyarados, which has been a meta deck since its release. Not at that top 3 spot anymore that it was previously when Mythical Island was the brand new set. But with the addition of Cyrus, the deck just gets better, as you always had Greninja to basically damage something in the bench. Cyrus can bring in whatever you want, and then Gyarados can get the finishing touch. Yeah, it's doing the same thing Gyarados has been doing since Mythical Island. Druddigon, some builds actually do run Kangaskhan as well, so that is one point I would like to point out. But you know, Druddigon or Kangaskhan in the active spot, you know, doing Druddigon Kangaskhan things. Gyarados comes out, and either Gyarados just starts one-shotting everything, or screwing over your opponent with the energy effect if you do get lucky and actually erase a very important energy that your opponent might need. your opponent might have needed. So yeah, the deck only got stronger with the addition of Cyrus. Next up, we have another Greninja deck. This time it is Greninja Darkrai. Personally, I like to Kangaskhan's in this deck because we don't have Magnezone for the additional attack, and if you're only playing Dark Energy in this deck, so Greninja actually can attack. It's only there for the Water Shurikens. But some builds do play 2 Druddigon, so it is up to you. Like I said, personally, I've had more success with Kangaskhan. But yeah, it's very simple 2 Cyruses because of Greninja. Also could play 1 Cyrus, 1 Sabrina, which is also a very good thing. Some builds play a potion, some builds play a giant cape. Most builds only run 1 leaf just because you want the Pokemon communications, or some builds do play 2 leaves and then 1 Pokemon communication, but you basically want to get Greninja set up very fast because this deck actually can struggle sometimes if you do get very unlucky without Greninja. But it is probably definitely the second or third best Darkrai variant that we do have currently in the game. And yeah, it's a super strong card. It's a super strong deck, and it's definitely been showing up in tournaments and having a really huge impact in the meta. Next up, we have full on just water Misty, basically Palkia EX and Manaphy, Vaporeon to swap the energies around, and then some decks do play Articuno. I know some decks don't play Articuno. Articuno is basically an additional attacker in case you need to swap out a Palkia, or if you don't end up actually getting in the Palkia, Articuno can get set up faster, and it also snipes the bench, so both Palkia and Articuno have that a factor, which makes Cyrus super good in the deck. Some decks, usually run 2 Cyruses if you don't play Articuno, but I guess if you do play Articuno, you would need the extra room. But anyways, it's a super solid deck. Basically, you ramp up your energy either with Manaphy or a lucky Misty flip, and then you attack a Palkia, and then if you have a Vaporeon online, you can attack Palkia back to back, and basically knock 2 things out, and basically just win like that. Next up, we have what I would like to call pure Darkrai, which is just a pure dark deck with Darkrai EX and Weavile. I feel like the most common decks I've seen have like the most success of this variant is the Spiritomb one, but you also can take the Spiritomb out and run a Farfetch. But if you do run a Farfetch, you're going to want to play a Geo in the deck. Basically, you have the Dawns to, in case you go first and have Sneasel and Darkrai, place the energy on Darkrai, chip them for 20 on your next turn, and then evolve into Weavile, and then Weavile starts doing the 70 damage. So you can do possibly 90 in 1 turn like that on your second turn if you do go first. But yeah, super strong. I mean, I think this deck possibly could be the best deck in the game. I think the only thing that holds it back is literally Exeggutor EX and Celebi existing, as everything in this deck is weak to grass. Yeah, but it's super strong. It just literally has that weakness to grass, which is like the one thing that holds it back, like I said. Because Yanmega is also a card, and Yanmega actually one-shots every single thing in this deck unless they have a giant cape. But at that point, you're gonna have 20 HP remaining. You take any sort of chip damage from Rocky Helmet or like a Dalga, if they're playing Dalga, Yanmega, or like Exeggutor, you're basically cooked. But the deck is still really strong as long as you don't run into the 2 matchups that are like pretty bad for it. Next up, we have this weird Skarmory and Magnezone deck that actually plays Heatran. So it's like a metal focused like Skarmory in the active spot with your Pokemon tools to basically do 50 damage. I think the reason it's actually so good in the meta right now is because Execute is everywhere, and obviously, Skarmory does one-shot Execute as long as they don't put a giant cape on it. So I think it has a pretty decent matchup into Celebi, and then Magnezone is just a strong card. You attack a Skarmory, I guess you could set a Heatran in the back. Like 110 damage, like pretty respectable, and it's not an EX Pokemon, so they do have to knock out 3 things in this deck. So yeah, it's just very simple. You have the 2 Sabrinas also for disruption, and the 1 Cyrus. Like, if you attack someone with Skarmory, you could always bring it back in later, and 50 damage actually pretty nice for 1 energy, as long as you don't get unlucky and don't have no Pokemon tools. So yeah, it's a super strong deck in the meta. Maybe if Celebi and Execute fall off at some point, maybe this deck will also struggle to stay, but I do think it's a very solid pick. Next up, we have the weaker version of Exeggutor, but this is still a super strong deck. It is still a top 10 deck, don't get me wrong. Celebi is probably slightly better than it because, you have 3 less Pokemon cards, so it's very easy to get Exeggutor from Pokemon Communication. But yeah, Exeggutor EX and Yanmega EX are both super powerful cards, and because Exeggutor EX obviously only needs 1 energy, you don't mind having to constantly put the energy back on Yanmega after it attacks. And like I said, Yanmega actually is a super good Darkrai counter, which obviously Darkrai has 2 really good decks right now in the meta. Yeah, and then obviously 2 Ericas, and then the support cards. You could throw a cape in there instead of 2 Rocky Helmets and stuff like that. But for the most part, this is a very strong build for the deck. And yeah, those are the current top 10 decks in the game. I just basically wanted to, like I said, talk about this because the mini set is coming on Thursday. Hopefully that's apparently what is rumored and speculated to be because of Pokemon Day actually. So we probably won't get the trailer until Pokemon Day is what I'm assuming. But yeah, anyways, if you guys like this video, let me know in the comments, and peace out and have a lovely day.